Hi, it's Robin from One Paper Street. I thought it would be a good idea to take some time and just kind of walk you through my paint palette, how I chose the colors that I chose to go in my paint palette, and why I decided to go with a limited paint palette as opposed to having like lots of different colors available. So I'm really excited to show you. If you have any questions along the way, pop them in the comments and I will take a look and answer them. But let's dig in. So this is my paint palette. I keep it pretty limited, as I mentioned, and the reason I do that is because I kind of like to bounce around to different places when I'm painting. So I don't want to stay in my craft room all the time. Sometimes I feel inspired by being in a different room in my house. Sometimes I would prefer to be outside. Sometimes I'll take my paints to a park, and I really wanted to just have a small set of paints that I could carry around with me pretty easily. So the more paints you have, the larger palette you need, the more space it takes up in your bag. So these are actually all the professional grade paints that I own. I try to keep it pretty limited, and I try to mix colors a lot just to make things a little bit more compact. But you'll notice here that on the far left hand side I have all of my cool tones, so my yellow, my red, and my blue, and then I have warm tones right next to that, which is my darker yellow, reds, and blues. So just to kind of give you an idea, if you're someone who isn't familiar with the primary colors, I made this color wheel a while ago when I was first getting started, and basically what this allows you to do is kind of identify how much paint you should be mixing in, or what colors of paint you should be mixing in to get a certain color. So with those 6 colors alone, you can really get a lot more colors than you might think just by mixing 2 colors together. So as an example, I've got my French ultramarine over here in this little spot, and then I've got my quinacridone rose over here in this little spot. And if you mix the 2 together in equal parts, you get this secondary color here. And that's like a true purple. But if you mix more of one color than the other, for example, if I were to mix more quinacridone rose than I added in French ultramarine, then I almost get kind of like this reddish purple here. And if I mix more French ultramarine than I mix quinacridone rose, then I get this like kind of bluish purple here. So this is what we call a tertiary color. So this is the secondary color, this is the tertiary color, and this is the primary color. So that's why I kind of have the 1, the 2, and the 3 next to them. And then down below, you'll see that these are kind of more neutral colors. So what I did here is this is actually the color across the palette. So when I mix like a French ultramarine with a New Gamboge and a Pyrrole orange, I actually get browns, and I start to get olive colors and things like that. So these colors are a little bit more difficult to create in the middle here, because you have to mix 3 colors together, and you kind of have to mix it once so that you get the same color across the board and you don't have to keep mixing it. So these colors can be a little bit more difficult to create, these more neutral colors, and so you'll see the other colors that I have in my palette actually are more neutral because these colors can be a little bit more difficult. So the primary colors that I'm using are Daniel Smith Extra Fine Watercolors. Those are the colors that I started out with the exception of one, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But over here I have, again, all my cool colors kind of just in a line so that they're easy to see. I have all of my warm colors in a line so that it's easy to see, so there's never any confusion about which one I'm going for. Now, I like to use Hansa Yellow Light and New Gamboge as my yellows because I think that they're a nice mix, and actually when you get the 2 together you kind of get this really great medium yellow. And then for the reds, I use quinacridone rose and Pyrrole orange. Now, I used to have Pyrrole scarlet. I used it up. I didn't love it. I felt like it didn't mix well with the other colors, and it was harder to create truer secondary colors. And Pyrrole orange gives me truer secondary colors, even though it's a little bit more on the orange side. So if I want a red, I'll mix the quinacridone rose and the Pyrrole orange together to get a little bit more of a vibrant red rather than an orangey red. So that's kind of worked a little bit better for me. And then for my blues, I use Phthalo Blue and French Ultramarine. So I talked about the primary colors, but what about the other colors on my pan? First, I want to talk about these three colors right here. Naples Yellow, this is actually a color that, I mean, if you look on the color wheel, it's not there. It's a more opaque color. It's a very different color than your set of primaries. So it didn't make sense for me to try and keep mixing that, because that's something that you really can't easily mix. And the same with the sap green and the dark blue. So the dark blue is almost like a navy blue, which mixing a little bit of blue and a little bit of black, you have to mix both the blues together and then some black in, and it was just kind of a pain. So I decided to buy those three colors and put those in my palette. And the sap green can actually be mixed with a lot of the other primary colors to get even more colors in your palette. So these three colors felt like it made a lot of sense for me to buy those. And then burnt sienna and burnt umber, again, it was really difficult to consistently mix those, so it made sense for me to buy those and like add them to my palette. And then I bought two black colors. I really wanted a cool and a warm black, so I went with the Schmincke Payne's Gray and then the Ivory Black. And then the last two colors that I have are the silver and gold. So if you look at these, they're actually like almost glittery. They have a shimmer to them, and I can add that shimmer to the other colors to kind of get like a shimmery sap green or a shimmery quinacridone rose, and it ends up looking really cool. The last thing that I would say is that if you're not sure what your palette should look like, or you're not sure what the paints are going to look like in person, you can buy a dot card. So a dot card kind of just allows you to look at all the different colors and what they would look like in that line. And if you buy a dot card, you can just dip your brush into these different colors, slide it across that little section on the card, and it'll tell you what it looks like. And I think it's a really great thing to do if you're not sure of something, but you don't want to buy all the paints in the line. Thank you so much for checking out today's video. I hope this helps you feel a little less overwhelmed as you're organizing your own palette and as you're thinking about what colors to put in it. And also, if you liked this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, One Paper Street. You can also follow me on my blog, www.onepaperstreet.com, where I'm always posting new information and new tutorials for those of you who are interested in arts and paper crafting. So thank you again. Take care. Have a great day.